episode 9, The Dress. And it's your boy Icon with some DC TV, and Superman and Lois is back on television as we are about to say goodbye to The Flash, but that's a different video for a different time. So, this particular episode starts back in Smallville, where there's a clothing drive going on apparently. And everybody's donating to this clothing drive. And amongst the people who are donating to the clothing drive is also the Irons family. And John Henry Irons and Natalie, they show up together because remember, Natalie can't go nowhere without her daddy watching. So they show up for the clothing drive. They hand over some clothes, over to Lana. And that was very weird to me because I'm just like, the two of you haven't been on this earth long enough to accumulate clothes to donate to other people. But anyway, they found clothes to donate to other people, and then they do the donation. Lana, and this is another thing, because in the last episode, when Lana and John were kind of like talking and having like their little moment, and then when John got beat up at the restaurant that Bruno Mannheim runs, I was just like, well, damn, it's a shame he can't talk to Lana about everything that's going on, and that's going to put a halt on the progression they made, as far as them potentially becoming a couple. But then I forgot, Lana actually knows about all this shit because she knows that Clark is Superman. So when they got to the clothing drive, she asked if she could talk to John privately, and then she was just like, hey, Clark told me what happened, how you guys got attacked in, Metropolis. Are you okay? How's Natalie doing? And I was just like, yeah, she does know everything. So Lana would actually be the perfect candidate to get with John Henry Irons because she's aware of the whole thing and she can sympathize. And then he was just like, it's just been kind of a struggle, for Natalie with the boy and everything. And then she puts the hand on the shoulder. And then she's just like, John, you can talk to me about anything. And then even him, he looked shocked, like, well, damn. Like, he looked like he wanted to turn her over right on that desk. But then he ended up getting a phone call. Like, I'm waiting for this. And this is so weird because, obviously we got the Lois and Clark, relationship. We've had the Sarah Jordan thing. Hell, even Jonathan and Candace, they've had their own relationship. And then the whole thing between Kyle and Chrissy escalated quickly. Why is this the only relationship that is dragging ass? This is the only one that's taking forever. But anyway, so he gets a phone call, and then it's like, it's the DOD, and apparently Bruno Mannheim wants to talk. Both John Henry Irons and Superman, they go down to the DOE, and they go to talk to Bruno Mannheim. Natalie, she stays with the gang, with the teens and everything. They're sitting at the diner, and then Natalie's a little upset because she's just like, I can't see Mateo, and I don't know what's going on with him. And then that's when Jonathan decided to be an ass, and he was like, well, maybe it's for the better because, he's the son of a gangster. And like even Sarah said, Sarah was just like, oh, cut your dad some slack because he just, you just found out that your boyfriend is like the son of a mobs of inner, he's like the son of the head of inner gang. But then, Natalie got upset. But then Jonathan's whole thing was, she was just like, yeah, like he's a criminal. Like, I'd be surprised if he knew his parents were criminals. And then she was just like, oh, but Mateo's not his parents. And then that's when Nat hit him with the facts, because she was like, first of all, your girlfriend's father punched you in the face and stole your car. So you're the last person who should be talking about somebody who's not who their parents are, because if Mateo's bad, then that means Candace is bad. And he's like, oh, it's not the same thing. And then she's like, whatever. And, and to be honest, like, Natalie got a point for that because, like, he was being a hypocrite. And then he did try to make up for it later, because later on he ended up orchestrating a visit between Natalie and between Mateo, and he brought Mateo in. And he should have did that, and I was happy that he did that, because let's be honest, when his car did get stolen, Natalie was the one that came forward to help him get his car back. She even put on the female iron suit, and her and Jordan together, they helped him get back his car, so he definitely owed her for that. So they brought Mateo in, the two of them met at an undisclosed location, they had a conversation, he was like, I thought you hated me, and she was like, no, my dad just took my phone, and then she was just like, oh, did you know about your parents? And he was like, no, I didn't know that my mom, was a metahuman, and that my dad, was like the head of inner gang. He's like, that's crazy. And she was like, no, it's supposed to be scary. It's not supposed to be crazy in a good way. And he was just like, nah, that's not what I meant. And he said, plus, I know my parents aren't the greatest, but he was like, yo, your dad's not a saint too, because my mama dying of cancer, and your dad won't even let me see her because he's hanging her death over me and my father's head. And then she was just like, I didn't know that. And then that's when he was just like, don't worry about it, fuck our parents. Like, they went quick from your parents, my parents, to hell with them. Like, it's about us now. And then he was just like, girl, I love you. And then, the two of them kissed and made up, and then Jonathan and Jordan hugged it out. And, I do have to say, I'm coming around on Sarah, because in the beginning of the season, it wasn't looking good for Sarah. It wasn't. Like, she was kind of like getting under my skin a little bit, but she's turning the tables. Like, she's coming around. She managed to get the boys together. Like I said, Jordan apologized to Jonathan. They hugged it out. Now everybody's cool. Everybody's one big happy family. So then while they were at the diner, though, there was a moment, because John Henry Irons, he did go down to the DOE along with Superman. And then John himself, he was just like, oh, let me talk to Bruno Mannheim alone. He goes to talk to Bruno Mannheim, and then Bruno was just like, oh, let me see my wife. And then he was just like, well, if you want to see your wife, he was like, give us back the blood that you stole, the ex-kryptonite that you stole, and also the dead carcass of the Bizarro Superman. And then his lawyer was like, oh, what makes you think my client has those things? And then he was just like, well, whether he does or he doesn't, them shits better show up on my doorstep, otherwise you ain't never gonna see your wife. Then Bruno was like, oh, you're keeping a family away from their dying wife and mother. And then he was just like, I was like, that was cold. Like, the look on his face, he was just like, well, give us what we want. You know what I'm saying? Then you see your wife, and he's just like, get out of here, bitch. And then, that's when Bruno was just like, I'm gonna see my wife one way or the other. And then he got upset, and then he walked out. He goes back to his secret laboratory, and then he ends up waking up one of the dead people that he did experiments on, and he sucked the guy down to go beat up on John Henry Irons. John went to the diner to go pick up Natalie, because remember, the 4 kids were originally at the diner. He goes and picks up Natalie from the diner. The 2 of them are leaving, and then he's just like, oh, like, is everything okay? And then she's like, no, I don't like being on lockdown. And he's like, well, it's temporary. Then after that, they actually saw Bruno Mannheim's goons waiting for them outside the diner. John Henry Irons whooped all 4 of their asses, and then they got back into the car and they dipped. So now John Henry Irons, he's upset because he's just like, oh, Bruno Mannheim's trying to get his revenge for what I said, at the DOE, and he's trying to come after me and my daughter. So now he's really pissed. Superman ends up going to Bruno's office, and he's like, look, last week, he was like, he's like, I saw the look on your face when your wife was dying. He was like, obviously you care. He said, this whole thing that you're doing, he said, just give back the items so the DOE can allow you to see your wife. Because he said, I saw the look in your eye, and that's a look of a man that truly loves his wife and will do anything for his wife. He said, don't lose the opportunity to at least say goodbye because you're trying to hold on to this experiment thing. And then he's like, well, you guarantee that me and my son can see her. And he was just like, you have my word. And then that's when he got the call in his ear, and he was like, ah, shit. He's like, yo, bro, it wasn't me. My name's Ben. And I ain't in it. And then he was like, what are you talking about? And then that's when the government came busted in, because John Henry Irons, he was just like, oh, you attacked me and my daughter in the streets. And then like they seized all of his assets. They were going through Bruno's computer, going through his files and everything. And then that's when Superman was like, bro, he was about to cut a deal. And then he's like, well, he can still cut a deal, you know what I'm saying? But he can cut the deal after we go through his shit. And then Superman was like, look, you and I talked about this, that I would get a chance to speak to him first before anything rash happened. And then that's when the general was just like, wait, he said that you knew Superman was going to come here and talk to him? But he was just like, yeah, but it doesn't matter because he came after me and my family. Like, he sent goons to try to beat up me and my family. And then that's when the general was just like, no, he was like, Irons, you're getting too personal. You're off the case. And I'm like, what did he do? Because that's a natural response. And I don't like the one thing about the episode that pissed me off, I didn't like the fact that everybody's trying to paint John out to be the bad guy and try to make him seem like he was crazy. And then he was just like, you're off the case, Irons, go home and be a family man. And then John gets upset and then he goes home. So while he's home, he's trying to fix his super suit. And then that's when the guy that, Bruno had brought back to life with the superpowers crashed through the ceiling, and he was just like, oh, Bruno said that's your ass. And then now he's trying to kill John Henry Irons. So now John Henry Irons is getting whooped in the streets, like by some crazy metahuman. His suit isn't working because he can't get the connection because there was damage to the suit from when he had the Bruno fight with the wife. And he was able to establish a connection with the hammer, but it's going to take a little bit before the hammer to show up. So while he getting his ass beat, Superman heard the call, that John was getting his ass beat. Superman shows up. Superman and the guy, they're getting into a fight. The guy ends up knocking Superman like 500 feet in the air, and then while he's in the air, that's when the hammer showed up, and then John Henry Irons actually took the hammer, and just before the guy was gonna like punch him or like punch a hole through his head or punch a hole through his skull, John took the hammer and knocked the guy's block off with the hammer, and then Superman was like, John, don't do it. And I'm like, he was about to punch a hole in John Henry Irons' face. What were you supposed to do? He's like, I'm not gonna stand here and let him punch me. And he was like, you didn't have to kill him. And he was like, I didn't have a choice. And he's like, John, you always have a choice. Not when he is trying to kill me and my daughter. And like, at this point, it's either him or me, and I'll be damned if it's gonna be me. And then the guy was talking shit too, because he was just like, oh, you're nothing without the suit. He was like, yeah, but I got a hammer, bitch. Like, and it's hammer time. So then after that, he goes back home, and then, so he's all upset and everything. Natalie shows up, and then she's like, I'm worried about you, Dad. And he was just like, look, I got a little beat up, but it's, it's all gravy. She's like, that's not what I'm talking about. You killed a man today. You've been doing crazy things, and then you won't let Mateo see his mother. And he was like, how did you hear about that? And she was just like, don't worry about it. She's like, no, actually, she didn't say that. She actually, she got tough on him. She was like, because I talked to him, motherfucker. So she was like, what you gonna do? And he was like, I told you not to talk to that boy. And then she was just like, look, Dad, she was like, do you want to be the person that tries to keep people away from their loved ones, because she said, remember, we didn't get a chance to say goodbye to mom. We watched her die. We didn't have a choice. Mateo and Bruno Mannheim have a choice. And she was just like, don't be the person that separates a dying family, like from their loved ones or whatever. And again, I'm like, why are we trying to paint him out to be the bad guy here? Because everybody, it's like, I get what everybody's saying. I get what Superman's saying. I get what Natalie's saying. I get what everybody's saying. However, everybody's ignoring the fact that Bruno Mannheim keeps trying to kill John Henry Irons. And at some point, it's like you can't turn the other cheek, because then you're going to get smacked on that one too. But anyway, so then now he got some thinking to do, and, he's just like off in his own head, and he's upset. So now on to the Superman and Lois portion of the episode. Again, going back to the clothing drive, there was a specific dress that because we got a little Clark Kent Lois Lane flashback when they used to work at the Daily Planet, where Lois had got nominated for an award. They were dating at the time, so Clark bought her a dress, and she wore the dress to the gala award show. And Lois was feeling some kind of way because she's done with her cancer treatment, and she's at the point now where she has to have the surgery, and the surgery should get rid of her cancer once and for all. But the thing about it is, the surgery that she's going to have, it's a breast reduction surgery. So now she's feeling very apprehensive. She gave away mad clothes. She gave away the dress that Clark bought her back in the day, and Clark was a little upset about that because he was like, this dress is special. It means something. She was like, yeah, but now it can mean something to somebody else. And then he took it to the clothing drive. When Lana saw it, she was like, oh, hell no. She was like, she's not trying to give this up. Lana went back to go talk to Lois, and then that's when Lois basically said, and I said, let's be real. Lois is kind of being a biatch about the whole thing, but her issues and her emotional concerns are 100% valid. And her whole thing is, when she wore that dress, she said she felt a certain way. She felt powerful. She felt sexy. She felt confident. And then she's like, now that I'm getting breast reduction surgery, she said, I'm not going to recognize myself when I wear that dress. And then for the love of God, I'm not going to recognize myself after I get the surgery, once I get scars. Hell, my own husband probably won't even want me anymore because I won't be the same person. And then that's when Lana was like, you should be having those conversations with Clark. And then she finally talked to Clark about it. And then, she expressed her concerns. Clark was telling this woman the whole episode how beautiful she was, and it just took her forever to hear it. And then eventually it finally got through to her. Then we had a flashback to find out she didn't win the award. And then after that, the two of them, basically made up. And Clark was like, look, he was like, if you feel some kind of way, if you don't feel sexy, if you don't want to have sex for a while, he was like, if you're not feeling like yourself, he was just like, I understand, I'll support you, but just know you're the most beautiful person to me, and whatever happens, I'm gonna be right here with you. Then the two of them hugged, they cuddled, and then then she put the dress on one last time, and then they flew up into the sky, and they danced in the air, and it was all loving and beautiful. That the episode ended, and thank you for tuning in. So now, some good things are happening here, because John Henry Irons is spiraling out of control. And I think he's at the point where he's actually going to let Bruno and Mateo see the mom. And Bruno's going to pull some shit where he's going to, like, whatever cure, because there was a moment in the episode also where Bruno ended up taking his son down to the secret laboratory. And he said, listen, son, this is what I'm going to do to save your mom. There's going to be a point where they're going to let him in the DOE. They're going to allow the two of them to see the mom. And then while they're seeing him, whatever concoction Bruno came up with, he's going to take it and inject it into his wife and try to save her. She's going to wake up and end up blowing up the whole damn building. I mean, we're definitely going to get a cameo. I promise you, in the season finale, there's going to be a moment where Natalie puts on the suit and saves Mateo from something. But the thing with John Henry Irons, I'm trying to figure out like where this is going, because like I said, they got it where he's a little bit off the rails. So unless Lana reels him in and the two of them finally get it down, then I don't know where it's going to go from here. But I'm looking forward to it. And matter of fact, didn't the Bizarro Superman wake up like in the last episode? Like, what's going on with that? There's a lot of questions. There's many questions here, but we here for and we waiting. So let me know what you thought about this particular episode of Superman and Lois. Check me out on Instagram and or Twitter. Hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when my other videos pop up. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, because we have the series finale of The Flash coming. Like this, like I'll be recording the review for I'll be watching the video tonight, and then I'll maybe do the review tonight, or I'll do it on Friday. My birthday is on Saturday, so happy birthday to me. I'll try to get all my videos done beforehand, which is basically just the Superman and Lois and The Flash, because Doom Patrol has not come back yet, and we're still waiting for Doom Patrol. So like I said, so check me out. Also check out the Hour podcast with myself, Sean, Justin, and Gotham Geek Girl Nadia, because we did a video where myself, Sean, and Justin, we actually said goodbye to the Arrowverse. And then there's a video where Nadia, Justin, and Sean actually talked about the Fast X movie that's coming out. I haven't seen it yet, but the three of them did. So if you want a review for the Fast X, go on Tacos and Geek on YouTube and check that out as well. So that was it, guys. So thanks for tuning in. As always, until next week, with some Superman and Lois action. I'm up and away. Keep it hot, because we're out this. Woo!